Okay, so now that we've set the box to open and only open once when we intersect with it, what we're going to do now is set it to play a particle effect. So in order to do that, in our blueprint here, let's go over to the set at the end of our play. After our play animation, we have this little set node. Let's go ahead and left click in here and drag. We're going to create a new node. And in here, we're going to search for spawn emitter attached. So spawn emitter. And so you don't have to type the whole name in. Once you get this far, you can find it pretty easily. So under particle systems, you'll see something called spawn emitter at location and spawn emitter attached. What we want is spawn emitter attached. And this will spawn an emitter that's attached to the object that we're spawning the emitter from. We want it to stay associated with that, like, if that makes any sense. And so, actually it's kind of hard to see this, so let's go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see that. Again, if you have trouble seeing this stuff on the computer screen, go ahead and check out the PDF, because it's a little bit easier to zoom in on that. So under emitter template, we're going to select the particle we want it to spawn. And there's like a bazillion particles in here. Like the infinity blade effects have just a ton of stuff. So what we're going to do is just search for one in particular. Search P underscore fire underscore ground fire ground. And once we get this far, we can see P underscore fire underscore ground fire blue mobile. Let's select that one. Go ahead and save and compile. And then what we need to do is where it says here attach to component, left click that and drag it out this way. And what we want is a skeletal mesh component. So yep. Let's try that again. So it's kind of complicated and it's easy to choose the wrong node, which I just demonstrated. Let me do that again because that can be tricky. So left click this, skeletal mesh. And then we have a couple of options that fall under here. One is add skeletal mesh component and one is get skeletal mesh component. What we want is the get skeletal mesh component. And this basically does, what this does is tells it, this is the skeletal mesh component I want you to attach this thing to. And you might think it would just sort of assume that it's the same one associated with this blueprint, but apparently it doesn't. And this is something that, I mean, obviously I'm not a programmer, so I'm not completely clear on. It's a little fuzzy to me, but I just sort of, follow directions, basically. I have, find tutorials and sort of piece of stuff together. So, and I know this, well, theoretically works. And so, one last thing we can do while we're here. So you could test this now, but you'll find that the particle is kind of small and it spawns at the origin point of the object, so it spawns underneath. So what we're going to do is change the location of the spawn relative to the object. And so in the Z, under location, in the Z, we're going to just type in 30. And then for scale, let's scale it up to 3. Compile, save. Now go ahead and pause this and test it and see what happens. Did you test it? Okay, so I'm assuming you tested it. Now the very last thing I want to do is add a sound. And so in order to do that, we need to import another sound in. So leave this open. Let's go back to our audio folder in here and then do add import asset. Click in our audio and then select chest open. And now we have a wave file for the chest opening. And then so after the spawn emitter attached, go ahead and click on this. Left click, drag it out. We're going to add a new node called spawn sound. And then we're going to go ahead and choose spawn sound attached again. And just like we did with the emitter, where it says sound, we're going to select our sound that we want it to spawn. In this case, it's going to be chest open. And then attach a component right here. Left click, drag that out. Search for skeletal mesh component. And then again, we'll choose the get skeletal mesh component. And now compile, save, and then test. Theoretically, when you intersect with the Pandora's box, the lid will open, the particle effect will spawn, and the sound effect will play. I have to admit, I'm a little nervous going through all this without being able to test it myself. Not advisable. However, I'm just going to cross my fingers and trust it, and then hope that, if I did goof up in here, that, going over the PDF will sort of fill in any blanks, and then I can kind of debug stuff as we're in class. So that does it for our Pandora's box. Now, at this point, if you made it this far, what I'd like you to do is go back and then grab, there should be the skull model. And then what I'd like you to do is sort of repeat this whole Pandora's box process using the skull model. And what that means is, from the very beginning in Max, animate the jaw opening and closing like as if it's laughing. Importing that into Unreal. And then setting it up so that when you interact with it in the same way that we interact with this, meaning when your hand intersects it, it plays the animation, it spawns a particle effect, and then plays a sound. And there should be sounds in there for like a skull laughing, if I recall. So play that sound. The only difference between Pandora's box and the skull is that it's not necessary to set up this branch with the is open. So you won't have to create the is open variable, because I think you want to set it up so that every time you touch the skull, it would play the animation. So I'll leave that optional. I mean, you could do it exactly the same as this, and only once will it play, or you could leave the branch and the set out. And basically, you would just connect it. Event, actor, begin, overlap would connect directly to play animation again, and then play animation would connect directly to spawn emitter attached. And so that should be it for this Project 3. And then if you have extra time, you've gone through this and we still have time, go ahead and feel free to spend a little time on the scene, adjust the lighting, add some more particle effects and stuff like that to kind of set the mood. You can what I've found is kind of fun is to really dim the lighting and then play around with some of the ambient stuff. So, okay.